Welcome back, Get a Grip on Lighting listeners. On today's show, we have Melvin Newman. Melvin is the president and CTO of PataBid, PATABID.com. Prior to co-founding PataBid in 2018, Melvin worked in the construction industry for 15 years. Melvin has experience in many of the key aspects of construction and prefabrication in the mechanical, electrical, and general contracting industries. He has worked for a variety of companies in his career, developing several key process advances and technological innovations. Key areas that Melvin has deployed technology is virtual design construction, VDC, and end-to-end digital estimation. In addition, Melvin is well experienced in software development, business analytics, and systems development for estimating and project execution. He is passionate about bringing digital technology tools to construction and making these tools accessible for all industry professionals. As an entrepreneur, Melvin co-founded PataBid and is the full stack developer on the platform. Nobody really knows what full stack developer means, so I'm going to ask him, okay? Specializing in the development of the ML and AI systems. So that would be machine learning and artificial intelligence systems. In addition to developing the platform, Melvin is responsible for building the deployment systems and developing key business partnerships. His social media is up on the website. Greg, before we get to Melvin, though, we got to get efficient here. We got to go to Light Efficient Design. That's led-llc.com, Greg Eric.
Always innovative. We talk about what else can you do in lighting, and one of those areas is EV chargers, and we've discussed a lot of that. There are options, but there's not a lot that do it like Light Efficient Design. First of all, alliance with distribution. They'll never sell direct, so they're always going to go through distribution. You can't say that about any of the other ones out there. And they have amp up software, making it very easy to operate. Flexible modular level 2 chargers, easy to stock and sell. And I'm telling you, it took me a little while to figure out what this EV charger stuff is, but going through Breeze EV makes sense. As a lighting distributor, you've got the option. You can sell it, partner with you, give you all the goods.
And hey, if you're a member of the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, especially if you're at the convention, which we just went down a couple weeks ago, that there's already nail distributors out there. They're selling this stuff. They're making money off of it. So why don't you? Mm-hmm. And why don't you join us at naild.org? What's happening, Melvin? Welcome to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast.
Thank you very much for having me here, guys. This is awesome. Now, I'm going to be straight bold here. You might regret this because as an Uber nerd, I can get a little carried away when it comes to, estimating and the front end of business here. So I apologize in advance if the nerd comes out too much.
That's what we're looking for.
We'll see how we do. Yeah. Yeah, at the beginning, before we hit record, you said that we desperately need you. Why do we desperately need you? What are you bringing to the table? Come on, Melvin.
Digital estimating, end-to-end digital estimation, lighting takeoff. I don't know if you guys have ever had the profound privilege of being abused as estimators. The guys who have to do the counts right from the construction contractor right through to the supply house, the lighting distributors, all of these people are counting things. And they are counting a ridiculous number of the same thing over and over and over again. I mean, a small strip mall can have a dozen different lighting types in it. It can have 1,000 different light fixtures in it. And when you walk through the mall, it drives my wife nuts when I do this. Like, we go out on a date. One of the worst ones, we pulled into a parkade and I started taking pictures of the ceiling. And she's like, "What the heck are you doing? This is our date." I'm like, "I'm seeing how these guys have installed these fixtures. I'm seeing how these guys have gone and done it." She's like, "You're ruining date night." And so I'm like, no, it's what we need to figure out, because every single light you see, somebody's gone and counted it. And more often than not, like 7 or 8 people have gone and counted that same light fixture along the way. So that's where we need to bring the automation, the machine learning, all of that in to make that process vastly more efficient. And that's what we're about at PataBid.
What's the difference for the listener between machine learning and AI? So before you go into it, like everyone kind of blends those things together. Most people think machine learning is actually AI. Most of the time people are what people are using is machine learning and AI is not there yet or whatever. What's the difference? How much for you is machine learning? How much is AI? Let us know.
So it's almost the exact opposite of what you just said there. Most of what people, yes, machine learning AI is business speak in a lot of cases. Machine learning is the computer algorithms that can adapt themselves. So
Mm-hmm.
they will learn from the user. They will learn from input. So the more data you feed them, the smarter it gets. AI is a bit of a catch-all term.
Mm-hmm.
Machine learning is a subset of AI. The vast majority of what you find out there these days with AI is actually hard-coded algorithms. So they're designed specifically to look for certain things in big data. They're designed to look for specific trends, do some fixing, whatever, but they don't modify themselves. In a machine learning environment, the actual algorithm starts to adapt to your data.
Mm-hmm.
So you're teaching it, you're training it, you're addressing it like it's a child or like some junior estimator, that kind of thing, where you have to bring it in and start to teach it what all of these items are, and then it will learn over time and get better.
So
So that's kind of
self-driving
the
cars,
difference.
self-driving cars are machine learning.
Yes, yep.
Right.
Self-driving cars. Well, they're machine learning that has then been baked. Like once it
That's
reaches
right.
a certain level,
Sure.
they bake it in so it stops learning, which is kind of a questionable thing. But you don't want it to learn the wrong way. We've all seen what happens
Sure.
with our big T there.
Sure. So then how are you applying this to the world of counting lights?
Automating it. So having the AI understand what the light fixture is, understand what that looks like on a diverse set of construction drawings. And it's a pretty major problem because there is no standard
Mm-hmm. Sure.
in construction.
Right.
So we have thousands of construction documents that we feed our AI and we teach it. And then we blend that with some general rules of thumb. So basically, the idea that there are blatantly wrong mistakes that an AI can make, and so we filter those out with hard coding and then let the system go. So that in a nutshell is how it works on that front. We also bring it into a whole nother level within the contracting process. So we have a subset of our AI system that will read the documents, like actually read the specifications and such.
So like most innovations, people way overestimate the short-term impact of say AI or or buying online in 1999 and
Yep.
way underestimate the long-term impact of these things and how they're going to play out in individual niches and how this will gain momentum. So you're saying that your system PataBid will scan drawings and do the
Yep.
takeoff that people are physically doing. Right? I don't ever understood why the engineers don't give you a count of the damn light fixtures on the damn drawing. By the
Wouldn't
way,
that be nice? Summary
yeah,
page.
yeah.
Well, so yeah, I mean, we could go right into that level. Like we've got Revit right now. We've got we've had AutoCAD for decades, but Revit is really the where it's at right now in the engineering architectural field. And yes, it can spit out an exact bill of materials. The problem is the engineer is then on the hook. The engineer has to put that intelligence into the model, and that doesn't happen, to be honest. Outside, the only place where I've seen that happen, heavy industrial. So oil and gas, those companies pay a huge amount of money to their engineering groups to produce 100% digital twin models. And they will issue at the time of tender a bill of materials right down to the nuts, bolts, and washers. And it totally changes the game there. When you're estimating from the contractor side, it's dead simple. What you're really doing is more risk capture. When you're estimating from the supplier side of things, then it's just literally a bill of materials. It's already done for you. But that costs a fortune. It costs a lot for the owners to do that. Now, if we are in oil and gas where, that light fixture that you need has to be 100% explosion proof because it's going into a refining area, stuff like that, you want to mandate down to the part number what you're getting because you have to. When you're in a strip mall or, you know, a multi-tenant high rise or something of that nature, all you want is a light and you want it to look reasonable.
Yeah, but
So
there
that's all you're
isn't
going to
that
put in
the
the model.
middle zone isn't that big, Greg. Like in between those tightly designed, like new construction spec and bid projects and the multi-residential high rise, is the space that big? I'm asking Greg this. Is it that big, or I don't know. What do you, Greg? Go over to you, and then back over to Melvin
Yeah, I'm not sure, and
for
I'm just kind
lighting.
of
This
looking.
is for lighting.
Yeah, from the lighting side, and just trying to figure out, I guess, how the system works. So the PataBid too. That's kind of my curiosity as far as the space. Um, no, I don't know if it is that big. I don't know. You tell us, Melvin. What do you got?
Yeah, it's that big. And then when you get into
Okay,
design build, which is what a lot of these are progressing to now,
design build.
because
Yeah.
again, it's just more cost effective, or progressive design build, or any one of these alternate delivery models, then the contractor gets nothing, like absolutely nothing but an architectural layout,
Hmm.
and they're putting all of these details in. And so that's where, you know, some of what PataBid does is the exact opposite of AI ML. When it comes into that, we've built, you know, a small drafting module in so that contractors can go and lay all of this in, and then the other half of what we're doing is bringing all of the data together. So you get all the shop drawings, you get everything built into one consolidated source. So if you're on design build and you're the guy who's responsible for laying in all of these light fixtures, not only do you get the counts and all the details, you get all of the shop drawings, everything with it, to place the order and to send to the client as you're doing the estimate.
Hmm.
So that
So
it's a bit of a different ball game there.
You know
Yep,
what I
you were
was
saying?
I was thinking about here, Greg?
mm,
Tape light. That is the absolute biggest pain in the ass on these specifications. Okay, is tape
can
light.
they be on these?
Yeah,
Right.
can your system handle tape light? You know what I'm talking about? Tape light. It's all custom
Absolutely.
Accent
size.
lighting, all that. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yes.
that is the biggest pain in the ass to specify.
That
And
yes. Oh yeah.
and the quotations between the two are astronomical. And then when you actually go to put it in the field, there's all manner of problems with tape light. That's the number one pain for me on this with this kind of cycle. What do you
One
got for
of my
tape light?
favorite ones from this earlier on in my career when I was working in Ottawa. We did one of the brand new feature storefronts for a massive company coming up from the States, and they had what were called clouds in the ceiling, and these were an architectural feature that were perimeter strip lights and all of this wild setup for the reflected lighting and everything coming
Mm,
off of them.
sure.
And unfortunately, and this was years ago, well, I mean like 8 years ago, so but when we were estimating it, unfortunately the junior estimator that was assigned to take these off screwed up in the estimating package, and instead of realizing that it was, you know, zero point 0.1 hour per foot of linear light fixture, they put 0.1 hour per fixture. And so it was a major hit. When you
Yeah.
walk into anything linear when it
Sure.
comes to lighting, you have to be very careful of, as the contractor. As the
Sure.
supplier, you just need to get the linear links, right? So so part of what we've done is we tackled in our platform, how do we build for the most complex takeoff, and how do we build for complexity first, because electrical as a whole, and this is just like outside of lighting, electrical as a whole is the most complex estimating you can do, and lighting is a huge contributor to that, right?
Sure.
Like, you know,
Mhm.
you walk into a hospital and you may have hundreds of different types of fixtures, and getting all of
Yeah, for
that
sure.
done right in a bid, when you're given, you know, maybe if you're lucky up to 6 months to put together a bid for what's going to be a 10-year job, you have to get that right. And when you're dealing with the complexities of OR lighting mixed with, you know, general architectural lighting when people walk into the ER
Hmm.
room, and all of these things.
Occupancy
That is
sensors, lighting control
deeply complicated.
systems.
Oh man, yeah. And then you add on controls to anything, whether that's lighting or heating or whatever. Yeah, controls is its own whole
So what does your
major
system do?
issue.
It knows like the different symbols, or when you like you take what do you have, like a giant scanner that you put the drawings in, and on the other end
Well,
comes out your
ideally
bid?
these
Like how
days,
does it work?
no, I mean, well, it's funny you mentioned that. We started with that end goal. We're like, yep, we're gonna automate this. We're gonna teach the AI how to estimate. And then last year, we did some trial runs with some potential clients, and it came back negative, literally because it was a bit terrifying, I guess. I don't know. Like they just weren't ready. The industry wasn't ready for that level of automation. And what they want is just to do the counts and then let the estimator control everything beyond that. Let the supplier control everything beyond that. So we had to do some massive pivoting in the way the system actually operated coming out of that. So right now, no, we've still let the user define what they want to count at that moment, and then the system takes over, the servers take over, it goes and does all of that counting for you. So we're more of an AI assisted takeoff now,
Mm.
and then we've got it all sitting on the background. So I mean, the what we had built, you could literally just throw all the documents at it. We're going to be progressively, re-enabling it as we get users more used to the concept of this. And it would identify your electrical drawings, it would identify your lighting schedules, everything right off the drawings. Um, so right now we're working with the clients that we have on the platform to bring that back in, because honestly that is the future. And then the other one is the risk analysis. When you get those documents in and they say something like liquidated damages, all of those kind of catch-all schedules, those sort of things, those are absolutely critical to know when you're putting together the quote on the supplier and on the contractor side. So getting the platform, and we're bringing all of this in to the platform so that it will unify what you're doing as the contractor and as the supplier. Does that kind of make
So you,
sense? That's kind of the key question there. Does that make sense?
yeah, kind of. I think maybe the way I'm going to ask it might help me make sense of it at least. Is just so what does it do? But give me a real specific example of how a lighting distributor can use this system. Like we get a bid request. Is that what you're saying? And then we do something, right? Or how does
Yes,
it work?
exactly. So
Okay.
lighting distributors, I mean, it's somewhat market dependent. Like where I've typically worked, which has been Ottawa, and then Alberta here. I've worked in a couple of different locations around Canada. Um, Typically what we would do is we would get the bid package in, right? And you start to slice as a contractor. So you would get your bid package in, you start to slice and dice it up, you pull out your schedules for lighting, you pull out your schedules for all the equipment, and then you start to send that out to the suppliers. Now, the more sophisticated supply houses will do their own lighting takeoff. In some instances, especially with controlled lighting, they have to, because they're the sole rep for that, and the engineer has basically divested themselves of everything and said it's up to the supplier to make a complete and working system, which is always the famous catch-all. So then the supplier would pick that up and start to run it through the platform, start to do the counts, figure out their controls, start to add all that in, and then sorry if I keep bumping the
That's fine.
microphone there. Um, so the supplier plugs all that in, and they would generate their quoted bill of materials. Now that goes back out to the contractor. They roll that in with everything else that they've got. But the idea from the supplier is they're able to put those counts together much, much faster. Using the AI assisted takeoff, you are now getting much more accurate counts in, an hour instead of days, depending on how big the project is. If you are the supplier doing the layout, so when it comes to these controlled systems, if you're just given a blank layout, like a GA, whatever, from the architect on a design build, and they have to go now lay in all of this, do the lighting calculations, for the floor space, all of that. They're able to actually do that now in a 2D space, right in the platform. It will give you out your full bill of materials for it, your full quote for it, and you export that layout and you send it back with your quote. So the contractor, the owner, everybody is on the same page. And that was a big thing when I was estimating that we started to do was, no, we're submitting our full drawing package that we've done back to the owner so that they know exactly what's been counted. So when the owner comes back and says, yeah, no, I actually want, 10 lights in this area. Well, you can say, well, according to our calculations, and our layout drawing that we submitted, you get 6. We're happy to supply 10, but here's what the change is. There's no more arguing on that.
Sure. So you started this. Where did the idea come from? Just from being in the field and not having the technology, or where
the idea came from, well, when I started in estimating, it was for one of the major electrical contractors, in North America. I was in their Ottawa group, and my very first day as a quote unquote junior estimator, the chief estimator dropped about 200 pages of takeoff on my desk. He handed me a calculator. He handed me a red book for pricing and a PHCC manual for labor. And he said, go, you have to extend this. And I laughed. I'm like, oh, this is hilarious. He's like, no, you have to do this. I'm like, really, man? I'm like, this is like 2009. Like, what are we doing here? Like, computers have actually been around for a long time. And so that was my first step into writing software in construction. Was I looked at this, I'm like, this is crazy. Built a small little tool to automate that. So, a couple weeks later, when he dropped the next stack on, it was okay, here we go, did it in a couple of hours at that point. And so from there, I realized the whole construction industry has been largely ignored by technology. Up until, I would say, the last 5 years, people have really started to step up and say, hey, technology has started to infiltrate the actual product. So, lighting controls have gotten vastly more advanced. And now we're starting to step that into the actual supply chain. Like, okay, we've got to
I don't think that's the
fix up.
reason. I don't think that's the reason.
You don't think so? Okay. What would you say would be the reason?
I would say the reason is there's a proliferation of boutique custom made software in the industry is the first. So a lot of companies have developed their own software, including Greg and I and many members of NAIL. They have their own in-house systems that they use for different things. The second thing is, like, when people talk about Uber or Facebook or Google, okay, these ideas actually aren't that complicated. Okay, so Uber may be genius, but its genius is in its simplicity, in that we know where the car is, we know where the person who wants to ride is, let's connect them, right? And so a lot of these things are kind of one-trick ponies that were first movers and got on the green first. And they don't actually do anything that's that complicated. And if you look at their financial statements, like, they make money in one way and that's it. Everything else is a complete waste of time for them. Electrical trade, lighting trade, contracting, supply, and specification is extremely complicated, actually. And you need a lot of subject matter expertise. You can't grab a bunch of software developers and, hey, let's break stuff and have fun. And next thing you know, we'll have the lighting specification app. You know how many people have come in this studio digitally and Ashley to tell us about some other app they're going to make that's going to revolutionize the world? And you know how many of them are still around? A big fat zero. Okay?
Yep.
And so they all tried and they all failed. And the reason why is because most people have their own sticky systems, which they rely on, which they've built themselves. Number two, it's extremely complicated. It's intentionally made so and becoming more complicated. So in a way, you're kind of chasing the dragon, Melvin. And so why would you be any different?
Because I'm riding the dragon.
Okay.
I'm a 15-year guy estimating this. So I know the complexities inside and out. And you are 100% correct on that. The complexity of what we are doing is psychotic. Can I share my screen here and just give you
I don't know if
kind of
no,
an
you can't.
idea?
We don't do screen shares. If you
No.
email it to Scott, though, we'll overlay it. So just speak to it and we'll talk
Okay.
about it.
So a lot of this PataBid started at the tender procurement stage. Have you guys ever looked at, public tendering?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Have you seen the utter and complete disaster that is?
Yeah.
So, in one of my jobs, I was tasked with finding all of the bid opportunities for this company across Canada. And I looked at the manager, I'm like, that is a psychotic ask. That cannot be done by one person in a full time day job. There are, dozens of different sources.
Mm-hmm.
You've got bids and tenders, you've got Public Works, which is now
Sure.
Canada
You got yeah,
Buys, you've
yeah, yeah.
got all of
Dingo,
that stuff.
all these different software. Sure.
Bidingo, exactly. So
Mhm.
just finding the opportunity
Sure.
is a wicked challenge. So I decided, let's try to automate just that. Let's start to dig into finding the bid opportunity. So wrote the
I know
first
about
bid.
6 people that already tried to do that too, by the way.
Sure. Yeah, good.
Yep.
I know of 230 sources now
Okay.
that across North America to try to, each one of them bills themselves as this.
Yeah.
So we started to bring it in. It was a complete disaster of a thing. Like, I don't know if you guys will have to blank this out, but weirdest bid opportunity you've ever seen in public tendering. What would
Me?
you? Yeah.
Oh. So okay, all right. So whenever here's what so we actually started to respond to a lot of these different things. I'm not I think, in the lighting side, and I'm just going to say it. I think there is a lot of engineering of the contract, and let's say not engineering meaning the specification of the
Mm-hmm,
products. I'm talking
mm-hmm,
engineering who ends up winning
mm-hmm,
that those bids. And so, from my perspective, when I look at these bids and they're so heavily specified, with the code numbers are super long, you can't even find that code on the manufacturer's website. That's a specially designed code for this project, which is
mm-hmm,
going through this agent and then is going to be sold by that distributor, installed by that contractor. That's what I smell with a lot of this stuff. And so when we win it, it's generally because we change the specification. And so
mm-hmm.
we are like
Yep.
persona non grata in some senses in that world, in this area,
Yep.
because we go in and say, this product is the same as this product, and that one's 3 times more expensive, and da 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 da. We do a lot of that. But if they're not open to that, I think that process is engineered. Yes. The
Oh,
process is engineered, not
you're
the
not
actual
wrong.
drawings.
Yep,
Yes.
you're not wrong on that front. And that's speaking to public tendering as a whole. But just talking from the supplier side, like when a municipality puts out a lighting tender for the supply of all of their street lights, where do you find that? In the whole mess of what is out there, how do you find that? And so when we released our system before we actually made it public or available, it went out and grabbed all these tenders. The weirdest tender I've ever seen was a public tender for breast implants.
Hmm.
And I looked at it and I was like, what? And so came across a system. It was for a cancer center in Vancouver.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, that actually makes sense. But wow, is this problem ever massive? Because that person buying that in, that day, the next day is buying LED retrofit lights for
Sure.
the cancer
Yeah.
center.
Yeah, for sure.
They're buying a heat
Mhm.
pump. There's no way that they are an expert in any of these fields.
Right.
And so you end up with stuff posted in the wrong areas, everything like that. So that was where we built our first AI. It was an NLP, natural language processing AI, that learned what tenders are. COVID tenders threw it for a loop, but it was actually within about 2 weeks able to learn what COVID was and start to filter all of that information out so that we could drill down to the exact opportunities, institutional, LED retrofits, infrastructure, road lighting, all of
Sure.
those pieces.
Mhm.
We're able to segregate that out of the mess. And then once you get into that, we also started collecting data on who's winning these opportunities. Speaking about what you're saying, though, to the engineered for success
Sure.
idea, we loaded a bunch of that stuff up into Google Maps because it has, this was just when I was bored one day. I'm like, let's see what happens if we map this. And man, you could see hot zones where it was blatantly clear things were engineered in a certain way.
Well, I think in the lighting industry, like, and my hat's off to the agents who are going to say, "Well, hey, I worked for 2 years specifying that job, and I don't get paid unless the job closes with my agency." Okay,
Yes.
so
Yep.
part of the problem is with the spec and bid model itself. Okay,
Yes. Yep.
right. So that idea that
Yep.
everyone should give all their knowledge for free in the beginning, and then we're going to turn around and find out who's going to give us the best price. It's like
Yep.
that's a bad model. They should be paying for the knowledge in the beginning for a clean specification, and then taking that specification, disallowing the person who created the specification from bidding. So any wholly owned corporation, anything you work for, anybody that you know or anything cannot bid this thing, and turning around to industry and asking for it. So the entire way that these public works go to these governments and municipalities go to tender is setting themselves up to be engineered, because they're asking people to do
100%.
tons of
Yes.
work for free. And
Yeah,
so
and
just
you're
in
totally
defense of the
correct there.
agents, because we hit the agents hard a lot, but I mean they do a lot of work on these proposals going up to them. And then they turn around and it's like, oh, it's a free bid, except you can't get the price on that, or your price is $60 higher a fixture.
There is absolutely no way I would suggest the agents are not doing the very best to their ability. 100% agree with you there. You have to, because you're right. The whole model is built upside down. But that's why we're starting to see more of these design build models coming out. More of these alternative deliveries. You've got progressive design build models starting to come out. All of this is coming out now to try to, well, the owners are trying to, push all the risk onto the contractor. And then the contractor is trying to push all of that risk onto the supplier. The key challenge there is the timelines are unrealistic in most of these. So this is where you need the tools as the supplier, as the agent, to be able to lay this out quickly, put that into a package with your quote, and submit that to protect yourself. So the idea is give all of the basis of what you've put together over to the contractor so they know exactly how it's put together, and working with the contractor in a collaborative way to start to move this forward. Because any of these, alternative delivery models, they're always qualified down to a list of, 3, maybe 4 at the top end. And these are all major projects. You don't see as much of this. It's done more bespoke when you get into the, private sector, that kind of stuff. Same idea, but it is much more bespoke there. But when you're talking like a hospital, and you're talking about releasing that in a design build mentality, you have to be able to react quickly and have the tools to put that together. So, sorry, you're going to ask something?
Well, I was thinking, I just want to define terms. So when we're talking spec and bid is the opposite of design build, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So like the pyramids were a design build, right?
Yeah.
The Stonehenge was design build, right? So the contractor and the engineer got together and built the pyramids. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, 100%.
And so
yes.
I think the spec and bid model is what the problem is. To me, that's where everybody's asked. Maybe there's an engineering firm that's hired, but there's a whole bunch of people in that value chain that have to work for free. And I think that just sets itself up for, and they have to work for free in the long closing periods. It sets itself up for low innovation, old products that were the hot stuff 2-3 years ago. There's a lot of issues with it. So I just wanted to define that for the listeners.
Yeah, no, you're hitting the nail on the head there. I would agree with you that a major challenge we have is in that bid spec model, where it eliminates innovation. A job that the owner puts out to engineering. Okay, so that takes 6 months for them to pick an engineer. Then it takes the engineer 1.5 to 2 years to actually put together a bid package. Then it's submitted out. It's another 2 months of tendering, and then 6 months. By the time you're done this, the actual product you've spec'd is 2 years out of date.
Probably, yeah. The other thing
So
too is the engineers get paid, but none of their lighting designers and agents do along the way. And I think this is where
correct.
and I don't believe that the people on the other side of the table are aware of that. I don't think they know that there's a lot
I
of
mean,
people that are working pro bono on this. So
on
your
some level, though,
software
it's
is going to tip this table over, right? Is that what you're saying?
that is the goal. Yes, especially in that rapid turnaround process. Like at the end of the day, I think lighting as a specialized subset of construction really can benefit from the likes of Revit, tight integration with Revit. Because then you've got Revit doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Your agents are doing less of that kind of manual effort, and it all goes into the model. And then in theory, we can change estimating to just pull the BOMs out of there. But then you run into a lot of legalities about who's at fault when that BOM is wrong. So that's kind of how I see it. Our software is at that step right now where we put in these products. We allow our partners to put in their own products. So that's one of the key nuances is when the actual supplier puts in their own product list and they're able to maintain that. They're able to update that live in the platform. And so then every contractor who's using that gets the latest shop drawings, gets the latest information that they need to put together that bid. If they're doing design build, it's laying it out with all of that information in there. If you're doing a massive takeoff of bid spec, which is everybody in bid spec pretty much loses in the beginning. It's painful because the contractor's not allowed to charge for the estimate, right? And on a
Well,
large,
yes. But here,
they're
I'm gonna interrupt
yeah,
you. You know, Greg,
yeah,
when I hear what he's talking about, you know how we always say that 2022 is the year of this and whatever. 2023 is the year of the software wars. I mean, there's so many people. Like you're coming at it from another direction. There's I'm just gonna look it up here quick. There's what's this other? There's Go Sorcery. There's
mm-hmm,
Trade Tech. There's
mm-hmm.
PataBid. There's all manner of software coming out where there's this. All you have to do is register with us and give us all your information.
Yep.
And everything's going to be so easy after that.
Hey, yeah, no, you're not wrong, and you haven't even touched on the juggernauts. You have Autodesk looking at this kind of thing.
Yeah.
You have Trimble looking at this kind of thing. And so, yeah, you're totally correct. Is who's putting together? I know here in Calgary, there's a number of different companies that are all trying to address this. You've got Quote to Me, who's trying to address supply chain. You've got
we're going to be the Pinterest of lighting. We're going to be the the
but you see,
the
that's
Uber
where
of lighting.
trying to be different. We're not trying to be any of that. We're trying to be the front end of business. It's a far more ambitious and complex problem, and it is in no way a trivial problem. Whether it succeeds or fails, still waiting to see on that one, to be perfectly blunt. But if it succeeds, it will be game changing. If it fails, literally somebody else is going to succeed at it because the industry has to have it. That's kind of what I'm getting at for what you guys are talking about. It's way less about PataBid. PataBid is one possible solution. It is what we are endeavoring to do. We're trying to ride that dragon. We're not trying to chase it, as you were saying earlier. But the reality is, whether we succeed or fail is irrelevant. Somebody is going to succeed at this because it has to happen.
Okay, as usual, I get the last word. You got to get off. You can't ride the dragon. You can't chase the dragon. Melvin, you got to slay that. You got to slay that dragon.
Yes, you
Greg,
have to tame it.
Let's go to Light Efficient Design, brother. LED-LLC.com, brother. What do you got?
That's right there. Breeze EV, what we talked about. I'm looking on their website, and our very own nailed Steve Robinson standing next to his install at a multi-unit housing.
Stevie!
Municipal, retail. You got it all, man. If you want to sell EV chargers, you should consider it as a lighting distributor. Breeze EV is your partner.
And don't forget about
Light
all the
efficient design.
other amazing innovations at Light Efficient Design. Those guys are spazzing out on all sorts of different things, but if you just dial it back to their lighting, they got all sorts of cool stuff for retrofits, and they're just a great company all around to have in your line card. So go to led-llc.com. And of course, Greg, the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, go to nald.org. I think I said .com in the intro, but oh well, I make mistakes
You'll
sometimes.
find it.
Join us if you're a distributor. And of course, folks, thanks to Melvin Newman of PataBid. You can go to patabid.com. You can go to Get a Grip on Lighting website right now and check out all the social media links. He's chasing the dragon. He's riding the dragon. He's taming the dragon. He's slaying the dragon. We don't know, folks, but there's a dragon out there. Go get him. Bye for now.